Anthropic just added a bunch of features to Claude Code and Claude Desktop, including the ability of Claude to ask you proactively for clarifications. Now you can use Claude Code directly on the web, very similar to Codex CLI and their web interface. They also released some pretty neat updates to their desktop application with some pretty awesome features, which are going to make it extremely useful. They also released a new Sandbox and actually made it open source, which is very unusual for Anthropic. So we're going to look at all these updates and a lot more in this video. Let's first talk about the latest updates to Claude Desktop, which is now generally available. So when you install Claude Desktop, it's going to be available in your menu bar. You can also access it through a shortcut, which is tapping options twice on Mac OS. So that brings up a quick view of Claude Desktop. But here's the neat feature. You can actually just drag and select an area that is going to be sent to Claude Desktop, and then we can tell it to do something. Can you analyze what is in these images and explain those to me? Which is actually pretty neat, especially if you want to use Claude as a helpful assistant. Now it can see your desktop. But there is also another pretty neat feature, which also has a very weird implementation. So let me show you that. This next one is Talk to Claude. So you can trigger Talk to Claude just by pressing the caps lock button, which was a very weird choice. Here is how it looks like. Now, if you start talking, Claude is going to transcribe the text. And then if you press on caps lock again, it will stop transcribing. Okay, so this is pretty neat, although I think it did not capture the whole thing. But here's the weird part. Now, if I'm here and I press caps locks again, it doesn't do anything, right? So it's a very weird experience. Now, I have a much better option for you. You can actually use my application that I'm calling WHRYTE. So this gives you the ability to transcribe your speech into any text box. There are a number of different short keys. It's not caps lock. So let's bring up Claude Desktop again. And now we're going to press the short keys. I captured this image, and now I can trigger this app, perform image analysis, and explain what exactly you see here. Now the beauty is it's extremely fast and it works in any text window inside the Mac OS. Details are going to be in the video description if you are interested in this app. It's a perfect companion for vibe coding or writing purposes. And it's going to save you so much time. I use it daily. This next feature is something that a lot of people have been asking for, and that's the ability to use Claude Code on the web. Very similar to Codex, where you have a version that you can use on the web, and you also have the Codex CLI. Now, Claude Code also gives you the ability to continue working on this web interface where you can assign the agent a task and then it's going to create a PR for you. So let me show you how this works. So here is the Claude Code version of this asynchronous agent. Now you'll have to connect your GitHub account. You can see that it already completed a task for me. So it's ready to create a PR, but let me walk you through what the flow actually looks like. Okay, so we're going to provide a very detailed prompt on what exactly I want this to look like. Now in here, you can use environment variable. So if you want to set any API keys, you can set them here. And you can also define the network access. So whether you want to use it on trusted network access, no network access at all, or custom access, right? In this case, I don't really need any environment variables or any API keys. I already created a new repo for this. We're going to just send that in and Claude Code is going to start working. So in this case, I just wanted to create a website for one of the apps. Now you can run multiple asynchronous agents. So you can potentially create yet another task for Claude Code and it's going to continue working on it. Okay, for some reason, I'm having a lot of connection issues right now. I had to actually archive one of the previous attempts, but it did work in one of my previous requests. So this might be something related to their network right now. Now, moving on. Now, Claude Code is pretty awesome, but it can be pretty expensive to run it. So people have been trying open weight models. And one of my favorite is Kimi K2. Not only it's state-of-the-art model, but it actually has a personality, which is very pleasing to talk to. So I was really excited when they reached out to sponsor this video. It's a free alternative to something like ChatGPT, but they also recently released their agent mode, which they're calling OK Computer. So think of this: deep sea research meets image generation meets Lovable. From a single prompt, you can create working web pages and web apps. So let me show you a quick demo of this in action. So here we select OK Computer. I'm going to provide a very detailed prompt, and let's send this in. It sets up a virtual machine and then start thinking about the specs. It creates tasks for itself and then goes working. So here's the website that it created, and there is a real working link to it. Seems like pretty neat and actually usable. So do check it out. You get to try it for free. Link is going to be in the video description. Now back to the video. If you're using Claude Code in the normal mode, it will keep asking you for your permissions before it performs certain operations, which is usually pretty great, but can be extremely annoying. Now, on the other hand, if you're feeling adventurous, you can actually use the YOLO mode or skip permissions dangerously. But this can perform some weird operations on your system. That's why Claude just introduced something called Sandbox, which actually Sandbox is the operations that it's going to perform, and you can limit where it can do those operations. So for example, if you go to /sandbox, right now we are in no sandbox. That means any operation performed by Claude can be outside the scope of the current folder, and it can do system level operations because we are in the YOLO mode. But with Sandbox, you can limit all the operations that are going to be performed to a current folder or set of folders and files, right? There are two different options. One is Sandbox bash tool with auto allow in accept edit modes. And then the other one is Sandbox with regular permissions. So if you click on this, is going to basically sandbox all of the operations to this specific folder, but it's going to still ask you for permissions when it's doing an operation. Now, this means that every Claude Code instance is going to ship with a sandbox that is going to be running on your machine. So here's the overall architecture. You have the user interactions, Claude Code, and then that sandbox environment in which is performing all the operations. In fact, the Claude Code web version is a sandbox environment that Anthropic is running on their own servers. And in that case, your GitHub credentials are actually outside of the Sandbox environment. Now, the good news is that they open source the Anthropic Sandbox runtime environment. So if you are building agents that needs a sandbox, you can build on top of this. I'd highly recommend to check this out. And this actually solves a real problem in terms of managing the access of the agent to the system. And according to their own research, they found that sandboxing safely reduces permission prompts by 84%. They can be annoying at times. So I'd highly recommend to check out this feature as well. Claude can now proactively ask you questions if it needs certain clarifications. So here's a quick example. Now in this case, I specifically told it to ask me clarifying questions. It can do it by itself now. So for example, I want to implement a new feature in my speech transcription app. I can select the answers to the different questions, right? And that's the issue, right? And then you can submit. It doesn't happen often, but if it needs clarification, it will proactively ask you. Something that I used to do was whenever I provide a prompt, I would actually ask the LLM to ask for clarification if it needs any. But now with this, it's pretty awesome. And the questions that it asks are extremely relevant and well thought out. But as a user, you don't really have control on it. It will proactively ask you The last thing we are going to look at is Claude Skills that you can now directly use within Claude Code. I previously created a dedicated video on what exactly Claude Skills are, and there's also a video coming out on how to use them directly within Claude Code. Link to that is going to be in the video description. If you go to capabilities within the Claude desktop or the web version, you can see there is a skill called Skill Creator. You can use this to create your own skills. So here's an example. I uploaded all the ADK documentations and just asked Claude to create a skill for that. So then it started using the actual creator skill and created a zip file. All you need to do is to just download that zip file, then go to the project folder where you want to use that skill. Within the .claude folder, create another skills folder and just copy the skill folder there. And if you want to use it, here's what you're going to do. Can you use the ADK skill to create a multi-agent system using the Google Agent Development Kit? This is supposed to be a customer support agent. Make sure that it's able to process orders, returns, and give the user information. Now, if we send this in, then Claude Code will be able to just go through that skill and use the ADK documentation to help us create an agent. So here it's actually asking us to use the ADK skill. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to watch the other video that is going to be coming out on creating skills and using them within Claude Code. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.